So my older brother Roy was 3 years older than I, so he had a book that the title of it was 1,000 Things for Boys to Do. Well, there was all sort of things in there. Well, we decided one day, you know, we can build a glider. Man, I wanted to be an aviator. I wanted to fly. I said we can build a glider. So what we did is we went out and we we cut a lot of willow limbs, and the willow, is fairly light, and it's real durable and real flexible. So we started building the glider, and we built the glider, and I guess she must have had around about 10 or 12 foot wingspan on it, and we fashioned a cockpit on the thing, and we fixed the tail, but everything wasn't movable. Everything was stationary. So we figured, well, how are we going to cover this thing? So there was a sugar refinery right there in this country town that everybody had a job at. This is where was the main source of money, was from the sugar refinery, and their sacks for the sugar was made out of cotton. So consequently, they were white cotton sacks. So we took these white cotton sacks that had been thrown away because they came in 100-pound bags, and we took these white sacks and we covered the wings, and we covered the fuselage with these white sacks, and we took it, we tacked them on, and then we needed another way to keep the wind from going through it, to give us some lift. So we got some paint and we painted all the sacks. We painted the wings white and we painted the body blue, and then we had everything ready to go, but it didn't have wheels on. You had to hold it. You stood up in the airplane, and you held it in your hands like this, and then the wings were out this way, and the front of it out there, and the tail was in the back of you. So the levee that kept the Mississippi River from overflowing into this little country town was around about 60 feet high. Well, the state had taken years ago and moved the levee back and gave the river more space to flow down into the Gulf of Mexico. And they moved it back about 100 feet or so. And they left this piece cut off, and it was a drop of about 60 feet. So we said, now we're going to get up on top of that hill, and when the wind blows good, you jump, and you're gonna glide all around the town, man. You're gonna just glide around the city. So I'm up there, and I'm standing up holding this thing in my hand.
I guess your brother Roy.
And my brother Roy standing in the back of me says, all right, Sam, the wind feels good. Jump. And man, I was just scared. I didn't jump. I was holding on to it. I said, no, the wind's not strong enough, Roy. He said, yes, it is. Jump. I said, no, it isn't, Roy. So the wind came in and like a little gust. He said, go, go. And he pushed me off the cliff. And when he pushed me off the cliff, boy, I thought I was Charles Lindbergh. I was flying all over the city, but I was flying like this. And I went straight down into the ground and crashed. And yeah, I don't know how I didn't get hurt badly, but I got bruised up pretty awful. But anyway, another thing that was in that book was, well, we're going to make a diving helmet. And we had big lard cans made out of metal. They were about this big around. And we had another one that was a little smaller than that. This one was a 50-pound can. So what we did is we cut a piece out, and we put a piece of glass inside of the thing, so I could, when you put it over your head, you could look out and see.
You notice he's saying so I could, because Roy was always the engineer and the designer, and Sam was the test pilot.
So anyway, we took and we put some tar all around the glass, the inside and out, and then we put a piece of pipe going up over the top, and what we had was we had a little connection for a hose, and for the air to come in. So the hose went down and went about 20 feet, and we had it hooked onto an old automobile pump. You notice the kind that pumps your tires up like that? And that was going to give me the air when I got down and under the water. So we had some packing around the can, so we went down into the backwaters of the Mississippi River where the waters had flooded in, and there was an area there that was around it had dropped off to about 20 feet deep. And you couldn't see much because the waters was kind of muddy in the Mississippi, but being in the backwaters, the clay and the dirt in the water had settled to the bottom, so it was fairly clear. You could see some. So I started wading out with this thing over my head, and when I finally got into the water, of course, what happens when you get into the water, it trapped the air in the can itself that was over my head. So as the water was coming up to here, and the deeper I was going, the water would get just a little bit deeper because the pressure was pushing the air out of the tank. So when the water got up to here, I kept saying to myself, "Pump, Roy, pump, pump, Roy, pump." And finally, the water started coming up. The water got up over my nose and my mouth, and I couldn't breathe. So I pulled the top off of me, and I came up over the surface, and I said, "You didn't pump, boy." But another thing that we did, we made a gun. We made a gun out of firecrackers, and we used a piece of pipe, and the firecrackers were about that long, and we had a little latch that you could open it up and slide the firecracker into the barrel, and turn the latch back and hook it with two chicken locks, and then hold the stock on your shoulder. And I had to hold it. Roy wouldn't hold it. I had to hold it, and he'd take a match and light that stem, and it would go shh right there by your face and go off. And honestly, that we had a marble taped to the end of that firecracker, because that firecracker was 3 inches long and was big around as your thumb and had a lot of power in it, and it shot like a rifle. And that marble, I fired it at a fence about 50 feet away, and I buried that marble halfway deep into the fence. That's how potent it was. But what happened was the little breech that we had one time broke from the explosion, all came back in my face, and we had to make a new one. But